Hello everyone and welcome to another very exciting tutorial. Today we're gonna having this tip on how to create the input for the type passport to be visible at some point. So you have like entering your text, but sometimes there are these websites where you can actually toggle on and off the visibility of the characters to see what you're typing really, right? And this is going to be an icon over here, which when you click on it, it has an indicator that toggles on and off to kind of show you sometimes you don't want the password to be like this, but like you want to really type your password, right? So now let's get started. Going to the Kotus online editor, I'm going to do create a input container div, a div with a class input container. Within that, I'm going to put an input of type password, right? So now you can see that there is something like this. It's of type password over here. Now in the CSS part, I'm just going to say input container. I will give it a width of 60%, then maybe a margin of, let's say, 50 pixel and 10 pixels. So it ends up over here. And then I would like to sort of style my input. So here I'm gonna do maybe border 1 pixel solid DDD, and then give it a padding of 10 pixel, then maybe give it a width of 100% so that it fills up the whole input container parent sort of thing, width. So since input container is the parent, and then maybe you know, maybe this is a bad color, maybe make it a little bit darker, so AAA, and then change the font size to be 16 pixel, right? So now we are having this input type password, and then you can type on it. So for the icon over here, I used material icon. So I'm going to go to material icons, search it on Google, the first link. And then if I search for here, when it comes, if I search for visibility, and then I select one of these, select icon, and you can see this is how you add it to your code. So it's an I tag. So going back to my editor, I'm gonna just paste it over here, right? Now you can see that it just writes visibility. Of course, we haven't included the library or the CSS of this icon library. What I need to do, clicking on instructions, and then what I really do here is a long instruction on how to use it differently, but I'm just looking for the link to the CSS, right? So which is over here. Going back to my editor, I'm going to CSS, and then here I'm just going to do import URL, and then import this URL. You can also, in your HTML, you can just use the link tag in the head of your HTML, and just the href URL would be this, right? So now, icon, and the icon is over here. Now the problem is that since I changed the width of this input to be 100%, this will come on the next line. Now the trick to be able to create this kind of effect or the layout, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to change the display of this input container to flex, right? So display flex. So as you can see right away, the icon will come over here. Now, what I do want to do again, you can see that they are not vertically aligned. The way you do it when the parent container has display flex, and just going back to HTML, you can see that we have the input container, we have two children, one is the input password, and then I'm just going to do this like this, and then we have also the I tag, which is the material icon over here. So now I change the display of the parent input container to flex. Now to align the children vertically, I just need to do align items and then center, right? Now you can see that there is a good amount of, it's kind of centered vertically, both of them. Now what I need to do, I know that I have the I tag over here. I'm just going to give it a margin, 0 from top and bottom, and maybe 10 pixel from left and right. And now you can see that it looks pretty good. But if you look at it here, we actually have the eye as if it's inside the input. So the trick is, instead of putting the border on the input, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this and I'm just going to paste it on the input container, right? Now you can see that the parent is over here. We're still able to type within this, as you can see. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the border on the input to be 0. And then what I would like to do usually is give it a border radius of 3 pixel. So you can see that it's now a little bit rounded and nice. So as you can see now, we have our input. There is an outline on the input that you can obviously disable it if you want, outline none. So now you can see that we have almost the same layout as I showed you before, right? I can change the eye color to be also like AAA. So now it looks a little bit nicer. Maybe the text is like too black here. I'm just going to change the color to maybe 666. And now you can see that it looks pretty okay. Maybe 333 to be a little bit darker, right? Now, how are we going to do the interaction? How are we going to make it so that when you click on this, it actually shows you the password? And the trick to that is that first we have in JavaScript, as always, we use JavaScript for interactions. We have to have a reference of this I. So in this case, in the HTML, I'm just going to give it another class, maybe visibility, right? Going back to my JavaScript, I'm just going to create a visibility toggle. And then I'll just do document.query selector. Obviously, that's how you do it in vanilla JavaScript, to select the visibility or the div or the eye or the element with the visibility class. Now I would just say, and also I need to have a reference to this guy, right? So that I can make it visible. So I'm just going to say const my input and then document.query selector, and then I'll make it, I know that the parent is called input container, so I'm just going to come here, say input container, and then my input, right? Now I have both the reference to this guy, and also I have a reference to this input, right? Now what I want to do is that when I click on the visibility toggle, so visibility toggle, add event listener, and then click, I pass a function as the second parameter, and then I would like to change the type of this input from the password that it is to text, right? So I'm just going to do input.set attribute, and then I would say type and then text, right? Now, by default, it's password. If I click on this, you can see that it actually shows our input because we changed the type of this using JavaScript dynamically to a text instead of the password, right? Now, it's still a lot to go because now if we click on this, it's just going to change this to type text. So now we have to kind of have a toggle, kind of a flag. So I'm just going to put maybe create a variable called password, and then initially I just say true, right? So because initially it's password. Now here, if I was just gonna conditionalize it, if password, if we have the password, you know, it's very important. Sometimes I see in the codes where people do if password true, and this is quite like unprofessional since password is a boolean. What you really need to do is just to see if password is true, and that's how you do it, right? If password, then I would like to change the input like this, and then I will, otherwise, if it's not a password, which we will, you know, change it later, I want the input, set attribute, and then type to be password, right? So if my flag is password, when I click on it, change the input type attribute to text. Otherwise, if it's not a password, uh, change it to password back again. Now what I need to do is just change my password flag to be false, or if it's false, to be true. So what I need to do is to just say password equals to not or bang password, right? So here right now, the password is true. When you click on that, it is true, so it changes to text, and then it will change the password from true to false, like that. And the next time, because the password is false, it will come here when you click and changes it to password back again, right? So now if I type something and then click on this, you'll see that it's like the text, and then if I click it back again, you'll see that it's password. As you can see here, the cursor is kind of like the typing cursor because this is a text kind of icon font. It's a font. I'm just going to change this cursor to be default, right? Now it's just a pointer. It's no longer a text. Now we also need to change this guy as well. And the way material icon works is that they have a class with the material, they have an eye with the material icons as a class, and then they change this visibility. So going back to the icon font website, if I choose this one, you can see that the only thing that we need to change is the text within this eye. Some of the other icon font libraries just use the class, like Font Awesome or Ionicons, but in this case, with the material icon, you actually need to just change the text over here. So now in our code, we also need to have a reference to this element, right? So going back here, we actually have, so we don't need to do it. So because we created a visibility here and we already have a reference to it in JavaScript, what I need to do here is that initially I want it to be showing that this is a password and is not visible, right? So I'm just going back to my HTML. Instead of visibility, I just type visibility off. So this is the state, and I know it's not visible. Now, if I click on it, I want it to show and become visible. So in my JavaScript, when it is a password and we change it to text, I would like to change the visibility toggle dot inner HTML to be visibility. Is it visibility or is it visible? Let's check it out. So it's actually visibility. So now going back here, I would like to do the same thing on the else one, but this time I'm just changing it to visibility off, right? So now start typing. Cool, it's not visible. Clicking on this, oh, it's now visible. I can see what I'm really typing. And also this has changed to an I without this slash on it, right? So it means that it kind of indicates that what is the state of the input at the moment. Not visible and visible. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I would put the link of this prototype in the description, and I hope you like this tutorial. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. As always, like and share, and let's make it happen. Let's make it the biggest YouTube channel ever, and I'm really looking forward to your contribution and your help. I wish you a great day and night, and see you next time. Goodbye.